Who shows up early? Hey, y'all. We're clocking in 2 minutes early just to do our little
Pre-flight check.
Pre-flight check. Testing, check audio. Thanks all for your feedback on how our audio has improved. That we had some challenges early on, but it's this beautiful work in progress. We've got some folks that are already here, so as we do our final sound check, just drop a comment in the chat. Say hey, where are you coming in from? We got Maryland in the house. I bet we do.
Is this?
I know you're out there.
Nationwide audience?
Mostly,
global?
well, it's potentially global. I don't know what time it is for cocktails in Europe.
Global is like. That's the farthest I've gone. It's potentially global.
Yeah, we're totally equitable here at the Cocktail Journey. You can join us from anywhere in the world if you want a cocktail at this hour, wherever you are. Hey, John. Good to see you. Diane says the audio is a little lower today.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Diane.
Columbus, Ohio.
We keep bringing in new little audio gadgets, so we like to test them. It's this nice thing. You know that it's only going to get better from here. Diane is here from Columbus. I don't know why, Diane. I kept thinking you were in Maryland, but I must have you confused with someone who is in Maryland all the time. I'm going to get it. Ohio. Hey, John. Good to see you. You know what? Hey, Burgeon. We just found out that one of our favorite people in the world, who's the godmother of our son, is moving to Pittsburgh. Fairlight, if you're watching, we'll miss you. But you can tune in along with John Schmid from Pittsburgh and make cocktails with us every Thursday.
It's definitely cocktail hour on the East Coast.
John says the audio gain can come up like 10 dBs or so. Hey, Louisville.
Still?
Here we go.
We got Kentucky bourbon in the house.
They're going to know more about bourbon than me. Perfect.
All right. If we're still a little too quiet, you can turn it up. We're going to get ready to start. And you wish you were in Maryland. What, is it not good in Ohio right now? All right, John's happy about Pittsburgh. Okay, how are we doing? Give us one last on audio, and then we're going to get started, because we can adjust these dials this way and that all day long, but we really need to get to making the Boulevardier.
Let's get to drinking and then it all sounds good.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter the volume.
John Park is an engineer of many things. Jamie, you and John should totally connect on that because he's cool. So Diane says it's cold in Ohio. Well, we're going to make a beautiful cocktail today to warm your bones.
Yes.
Okay, take a quick second.
One sec.
Just a mental pause.
One pause.
Mental pausing.
All right, we're going to go. So, welcome to the Cocktail Journey. We're here to make the Boulevardier today. We've got a new face.
Hello.
Isn't it cute? Thanks for coming. When you are coming on, just if you're just joining us, let us know where you're coming from. Let us know what kind of bourbon you've got for today's cocktail, or if you're using a rye. I think that we're gonna do both today, and so that's kind of fun. What kind of whiskey are you drinking in your Boulevardier? If you will remember back to our Negroni episode, we mentioned during the Negroni episode that the Boulevardier is a Negroni cousin. So if for some reason you happen to be out of whiskey, you can make this cocktail with gin.
Very true.
This is a new friend of ours, actually a real old friend that we've known for a long time.
New to you.
Yeah.
Like a new used car, but without the in-car smell. Hopefully.
I love that smell.
You don't smell like an old car.
Some days.
We'd love to introduce you to Eric, commonly and more commonly in San Diego known as Shrimp Toast Long. Maybe by the end of this episode, we'll learn the meaning of your name, because I don't know if I've heard it.
Yeah.
But don't share it now.
Okay.
We'll have to wait till the end.
Okay.
I have it ready to fire off. I've been asked so many times, so you just let me know when.
So, welcome, Eric, to the Cocktail Journey.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to do the Boulevardier. I want to introduce this guy, though, because we've known him for quite a few years in San Diego. I think we met you at Ironside.
Like my baby days.
In the baby days when he was first learning bartending. And then Shrimp Toast moved to Noble Experiment, which for those of you who have done cocktail tourism in San Diego probably are familiar with, and was there for a while making amazing drinks, especially prohibition drinks like the Boulevardier. And then he totally flipped it on his head, and after a short stint at Bracero, went and opened False Idol, which is a speakeasy inside Craft and Commerce, and spent 2 years making tiki drinks and managing that program. So we will probably have him back when we start talking tiki. But one of the things that we thought he would be great for today is he's also works with the Campari group, and so we can talk a little bit about Campari later on, and this beautiful red ruby Amaro Aperitivo. So he's no stranger to the Negroni or the Boulevardier, which both specifically call for Campari. How about, you want to say anything else about yourself? I feel like I covered all of your beautiful points, but
the brief history. After False Idol, I fully moved over to the brand side of things, and I did a little time with a small rum company, selling some really esoteric rums from Martinique and St. Lucia. And then finally, I landed a spot with the Campari group, Grupo Campari, and we have a wonderful portfolio, not only just the Italian brands, but Wild Turkey, which we'll be using today, Sky Vodka, Espolón, Tequila, kind of got something for everyone. But today I'm super excited to make probably one of my favorite cocktails, actually. And it's great now that I don't only drink rum and I sell whiskey. I can actually drink whiskey in Boulevardiers again, and it's a really beautiful thing. So I'm super happy to share this with you guys.
Spoiler alert, there's a variation coming, and supposedly the variation is more desirable than the original. So we'll see.
We like to...
It can be said.
He likes it.
Don't save yourself for it. We know you guys are 2 or 3 cocktail people, so we've got plenty of space for that.
We're going to have a lot of Boulevardiers.
So we've got folks using High West
Bourbon.
Bury. That maybe John.
Maybe bourbon, maybe rye, maybe the High West Rye.
High West
fantastic.
Rye.
I think I saw a Whistle Pig.
We got
piggyback, great.
Whistle Pig or Elijah Craig.
Michter's Corey. That's a bold choice, and I agree with that.
And we'll talk about that. Sazerac Rye, Piggyback, James E. Pepper Rye, Eagle Rare.
Perfect. These are all great.
Or Rare Eagle.
Anyone know where to get Wild Turkey Rye? Where do you live? I'll make sure to reach out to a coworker.
Yeah, let us know where you're at. So we actually have had Wild Turkey Rye. We have the bourbon today. And okay, John's using Rittenhouse.
Great.
And yeah, I think Wild Turkey's pretty available across the nation. So
yes,
he's the guy to talk to if you can't get it.
It should be at least.
So let's get to making cocktails.
Yes, let's get a drink in the hands.
Get a drink in the hand. Tell us about the Boulevardier. I think we have 2 potential recipes depending on what your bourbon or rye of choice is.
Yeah, definitely. So I think especially with a rye, if you're using a rye today, we might want to adjust the recipe. So I think we should talk about the original recipe. It's an equal parts cocktail, just like a Negroni. So 1-1-1, as we would say. Ounce of Campari, ounce of sweet vermouth, and then an ounce of American bourbon. There is an adjustment you could make depending on the type of bourbon you're using, whether it's cask strength or just a regular proof bourbon. But I think for those of you using rye tonight, maybe make this cocktail with 1.5 ounces of rye, 3/4 ounce Campari, and 3/4 ounce of sweet vermouth.
It's like my Negroni spec, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the rye I think needs a little more presence in the cocktail, whereas a bourbon, especially Wild Turkey 101, that's a high enough proof for just an ounce to stand up next to some pretty intense ingredients, being Campari and vermouth.
So you recommend, if you're using a rye or a lower proof bourbon,
Yes.
You make the 1.5, 3/4, 3/4.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna put that in the chat. Just wanted to clarify. Can you talk about the different proofs between different bourbons so people can decide which one to use?
Definitely. So we have two up here, and it's a great way to compare and contrast. So Wild Turkey, just as a base SKU, a readily available bourbon that we make, comes standard at 101 proof, which is really awesome. It's really good bang for your buck. Also, the bourbons inside of Wild Turkey, the youngest bourbon we put in that blend is 6 years old. So it actually has a good amount of age on it and a good amount of proof already. So I think that's why that 1 ounce of Wild Turkey 101 in Boulevardier makes sense because of that proof being there. In comparison, the Elijah Craig, this is kind of more of a what I'd call like a standard proof bourbon. So it's 94 proof. It's actually even a little bit higher than like saying 86. This is a bourbon that I would do 1.5 ounces, just kick it up a little bit so you get a little more of that bourbon presence and not so much of the Campari and vermouth taking over in the cocktail. Cool.
All right. Now you got your specs. I dropped those in the chat. Decide which one you're making, and which one are you making tonight?
I'm going to go just a 111 with Wild Turkey 101.
Okay, great.
Before we commit to making the drink, can we maybe talk about what happened to Wild Turkey 101 and how it came back?
Oh, let's talk about that later.
At the end.
Sure.
Let's get the drinks going first, okay?
Yeah, let's get a drink in the hand. Yes. I just need a glass with some ice.
Get to work. Don't sleep on the job.
Awesome.
I'll get the glass in a second.
Brilliant.
John said both Booker's bourbon and Little Book bourbon make a very nice Boulevardier.
I think I'm actually going to build this in the glass.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
We wanted to chat. Yeah, we wanted to chat about that.
I'll grab it. We're going to talk about ice and stuff.
So, while Shrimp Toast is getting his glass, we had a great little conversation beforehand because we wanted to present a different technique for building this drink, which was the in-glass technique. Now, on past live streams and in other areas of sort of the cocktail journey, we've talked about the importance of stirring in a mixing glass and then straining into a glass. And I think Stefan might definitely be on the side of when we made the old fashioned, we talked about getting that chill down and getting to a place where I think you can utilize a chilled mixing glass and ice and then pouring over fresh ice. And that's an approach. But here in the cocktail journey, we're not snobs, and we know that there's more than one way to do something. And so Shrimp Toast wants to show us and talk about the value or the utility of building in a glass.
Yes.
So take it away.
Yeah, definitely. And Steph and I can have a debate maybe on camera.
That would be fun.
We love to argue with each other. I think building on a cube in a glass from a conservation perspective is really smart. If you're stirring over ice and then pouring over a fresh cube, well, you're just discarding the ice that you built the cocktail over. I think this is especially important for when you're at home bartending. You might not have, an industrial freezer full of ice that you can just have this endless supply of ice for. So I think building in glass, it's just a conservationist approach to bartending and bartending at home. Save your ice.
We were talking about that because sometimes, especially if you invest in like really nice clear ice, or you spend some money on, something like we've used penny pound ice from LA. You're like,
yeah, it's like you want to value those cubes. Mm-hmm. You don't want to just use them all in one night. So I also am a proponent of this because I think a cocktail, especially like a Boulevardier or Negroni, they're really bold and intense. And after we stir it, I think there's this kind of journey you go on while drinking it where the cocktail dilutes even more over the cube over time. Mm-hmm. And you kind of get this really nice sweet spot in the middle of drinking it where it's just this perfect level of dilution. And it's a really lovely experience. And this is why I build my cocktails over the cube in the glass.
And we talked about that, I think, on the old-fashioned live stream, is sometimes you almost want to serve it a little under-diluted,
yes,
because you know that it's on that ice and it's gonna melt in. And so it's a beautiful analogy. It's definitely the journey.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll talk about stirring a little bit, and I'll give you guys the basics that I got when I was actually at Ironside, studying under the tutelage of the one and only Layla Cap,
I know.
who we all know and love. So when stirring, he explained it to me like this. I imagine a string at the top of my spoon going up to the ceiling, and I'm starting at 12 o'clock, and I am pulling the spoon to 6, and then I am pushing the spoon back to 12. So that's just, I start with just these half circles, and this is like for practice when you're at home. And when you're ready to go the distance, I'm just stirring in a clockwise manner, but keeping in mind that pull and push motion.
There it is.
And I like to do a little, I like to coat the cube, you know, make sure,
Get it up there.
make sure the cocktail's really just getting all over the cube. And you know, these types of ice cubes, a little more stir. That should be okay. These types of cubes are awesome for a couple reasons. So if you're using a bunch of smaller cubes of ice, that's more surface area for the liquid to touch, and you're going to get a faster rate of dilution. So I love that I'm seeing these types of cubes make it into the homes of home bartenders. It's really awesome because this is the best type of ice to make your cocktail on. And it's because there's less surface area. So, you know, this right now, after I stirred it, I can let this marinate for a good 30 minutes, and I'm still going to have a good sip at that 30-minute mark. It's not going to be completely watered down if I was just using, like, freezer pillow ice, which I do use at home. Embarrassingly enough, I am not equipped with great ice at my house. I will admit that.
I think it's the case for a lot of people. Like,
Yeah.
It's for a lot of people. Like, we are just so fortunate that we have a place in LA that delivers penny pound ice to Collins and Coupe, and we can go and buy it.
Yeah,
and pick it up.
I mean, it's the best analogy I ever heard was, you know, ice is to a bartender as fire is to a chef. It's extremely important. Like if you want to elevate your cocktail game, especially at home, I definitely recommend investing in some solid pieces of ice. It sounds ridiculous to say, but invest in the ice, and it goes a long way for sure. I will garnish this. I almost forgot, and it's been a while since I used a peeler, so I'm going to do this slowly.
Shrimp Toast is happily retired from bartending.
I am.
But we like to bring them out of retirement every once in a while.
Put me on the spot. It's fine. So yeah, just I prefer an orange zest. You can do a lemon zest. It's all preferential. Sort of how like the recipe variation is preferential. That's why I like so much about Negronis and Boulevardiers. Like everyone kind of has their own preference to the cocktail and to their liking. I like the orange because, like, I'll be honest, I have a sweet tooth and I like sweet things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you like a little more bitter herbaceousness, I think the lemon zest works a little bit better with the cocktail.
Both nice and bright.
Definitely. Boom. There's your Boulevardier.
It's beautiful. You're going to drink it.
Perfect.
I'm doing...
I need it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you can give that one to Sean, and then you can have the... Well, we can make many Boulevardiers.
We got plenty of penny pound ice and a lot of things to make Boulevardiers with.
We make ourselves very well stocked. So while you all are making your Boulevardier, like, don't be shy. If this is your first time on the live stream and you've got a question, there's no like simple question. There's no question too simple enough for us to not talk about. So like, I don't know, I'll ask something that's maybe obvious. I guarantee there's probably at least one person in our audience who doesn't have a nice big cube of ice at home.
Yeah.
What would you recommend to them? How would they need to modify a technique, or?
That's fine, because that's what I use. So the only modification technique-wise is you're going to stir for a lot less amount of time than if you will with a large cube. So you can just think about like that dilution rate. It's going to happen a lot faster with, you know, smaller, more surface area cubes in your glass as opposed to this big diamond that we have in this glass. So same thing I just did, same thing I talked about with stirring, just for a lot less time, because that dilution is going to happen a lot faster.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah.
Would you recommend still the stir in glass technique with smaller ice?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I'm going to stand my ground on it.
I think it's good. I think it's so good to have different perspectives
I can
because
hear Stefan. He's like,
oh, I'm sure
he's brooding somewhere.
One of the things we love about Stefan is he's a little bit of a snob, and I say that with all the love in my heart because I'm there. I'm sometimes there too. But one of the things that we like to provide is other perspectives. Like, I never want somebody not having a mixing glass to prevent them from making a cocktail. And so this is a really good option for, like, or maybe you just broke your mixing glass, because guess what? That happens all the time. Still make yourself a cocktail. Like, that doesn't need to be, it doesn't have to be so perfect that it's a non-starter for you. It's about enjoying this experience. And
any cocktail that's in my hand is the best cocktail. So
there you go.
However you get there, good for you. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. So any questions about the basic Boulevardier? Anyone, what do you think about the one that you made? Is there a way that you might change it up, or is there something that was disappointing to you when you made it? Because this is the time to ask this guy, what do I do next? What went wrong? Or where could I go next if this is not exactly the perfect thing that I like and I want to try something different?
Yes, please.
Steve says some bartenders use an orange spiral versus a slice of skin. Any opinions on the type of garnish that we use?
I mean, I'm a pretty firm believer in just the standard zest. And I mean, I know this is sacrilege, but I think this is important to talk about. On the zest, I actually didn't even get that much of it, but I know it's hard to see. But what we call this white part of the fruit is the pith. And this is where a lot of really, really bitter essential oils are. So I like to get a peel like this with actually a little bit more of that pith on it, because it adds some sweetness and a little bit of bitterness from the expression. I mean, I'm also not opposed to, if you want to put an orange slice in there, go for it. It's a nice little snack at the end of your drink. So, I mean, for essence purposes, I prefer just a standard zest for the cocktail. Yeah.
Great question. And I think, John, we're going to chat about vermouth in the second half. I'm going to make myself a little NA. So yes. That's non-alcoholic for those of you who don't know that abbreviation. If you weren't here on last week's live stream, we started talking about non-alcoholic beverages, because sometimes you are in a position where you don't want to drink or like alcohol, but you still want to drink something fancy. Or maybe you have a guest or a friend that just alcohol doesn't sit well with, or they're pregnant like me, by the way, spoiler alert. Or people have gone sober and they're taking a break from alcohol, or it's dry January and you still want something like ritualistic, but you're just opting out of the alcohol part of it. We still think that there's a place for ceremony and ritual and enjoying something other than like your standard soda water, which is, you know, a really nice standalone, but it can get a little boring for 9 months.
Yeah, spruce it up.
So I'm going to actually repurpose some ingredients from some of our past live streams. I've got this tonic syrup from when we did our gin and tonic last week. And I've got this Fever Tree pink grapefruit soda from when we did the Paloma. We still have it because we definitely preferred the fresh grapefruit juice for the Paloma. But this is what we're going to do today.
It's like a grapefruit tonic cooler.
A grapefruit tonic cooler. And so I'm just going to use...
I'm horrible at naming cocktails. I can make them. Like, I would come up with them, but I would actually make my staff name them. And it's so much harder than coming up with.
What is that?
In my opinion.
All right.
At least for me. I don't know.
I'm going to go light on this because I don't want too much of it. And so I just did 3/4 of an ounce of the tonic. And I'm just going to put the grapefruit soda right in there.
Just go for it.
Thanks, Sean, for getting me a beautiful glass. And, you know, you don't have to stir this drink very much. You're going to want to keep the laughter in there.
The laughter.
That's what we loved.
That's from Brian.
That's totally from Brian last week.
You didn't have to tell me.
I know.
I worked with Brian at Bracero. And, laughter in the cocktail.
So I just incorporated that a little bit, and I'm going to top off now that it's going down. It is beautiful. Look at that. It looks like this sunset.
That tonic syrup, hands down the best tonic syrup on the market. And I got a fun fact, if you got time for a fun fact, about this tonic syrup. So Small Hand Foods, they actually met with Desmond Payne, who is the master distiller for Beefeater, and they designed this tonic syrup to work perfectly with Beefeater. So if you have Beefeater at home and you get this tonic syrup, it makes the perfect gin and tonic, according to Desmond Payne. And he knows a little bit about gin, I would say. Beefeater's pretty decent. So we use that stuff. We used this at Noble for probably the first 6 months that I worked there. Yeah. Yeah. If we did a gin and tonic, we did it with tonic syrup, soda water, and then Beefeater.
I stuck a little grapefruit peel in there, and the aromatics that are coming off of that, just like it hits you the grapefruit right away. This is delicious. So
I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah, repurposing great ingredients and just kind of experimenting. Literally, that's the first time that I made it. I was thinking about what to make. You want to taste some? You want to taste some?
The
Sean
NA
wants
is
to
more
taste
popular
it.
than the A.
Don't
the
worry,
A
you'll get a Boulevardier, Sean. So that's a great option. I think we're going to start posting the tonic syrup. Steve was Small Hand Foods tonic syrup.
Yeah, they're out of San Francisco.
I think last week in the live stream, someone also was using Jack Rudy Cocktail Company.
Okay.
Tonic syrup.
There's a lot on the market these days. Small Hands is kind of the OG, I would say. Their grenadine's killer. Their orgeat's killer.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't want to go through the laborious process of making those syrups, which I have a lot of experience in,
their orgeat,
I highly
which is
recommend
beautiful.
just getting these. It's call it a shortcut, but trust me, making orgeat is later another episode. I'll talk all about orgeat.
Orgeat is amazing. Okay, so if you want to learn more about tonics and tonic syrup, just watch last week's live stream with Brian with a gin and tonic.
Yes.
Brian and Stefan. It was a lot of fun. Okay, are you guys ready for a second Boulevardier?
Yeah.
I have mine now, so I'm happy.
Now it's Sean's turn for a drink. So,
what else do we want to talk about? Do we want to talk about the history?
Yeah, so I think I was telling everyone here I did some history cramming, if you will, last evening on the history of the Boulevardier. What I uncovered was Henry Are we going with McCallum? McElhoon. That's more fun. It's more fun to say. We're probably saying it wrong. He was a bartender at the Plaza Hotel in New York City, pre-Prohibition. When Prohibition was enacted, he moved to the UK and then finally ended up in Paris, France. And when he was there, he was making what he called new drinks. And he was taking American classics and utilizing European ingredients, liqueurs, spirits, Campari, obviously. And then there was another guy who was a big part of the proliferation of this cocktail, and that was Erskine.
Erskine and Gwyn.
Names back then were so much better than they are now. Erskine. That is something. He was drinking Boulevardiers during Prohibition, actually. He was going into bars, speakeasies, where Americanos were being made in Negronis, and he was ordering a Negroni with American whiskey. And he happened to work for a magazine called the Boulevardier. So, and then we see the Boulevardier first published in Barflies and Cocktails. Can't tell you the year that book came out, but
it was old.
Yeah, it's old. I thought I had it on my bookshelf. You also thought you had it.
I was desperately looking for it.
It's somewhere.
It's around this house.
So I mean, it's the history part's always fun. I think with cocktails, and it's kind of funny when you look at the history of cocktails. A lot of the cocktails we know and love today were mistakes. I can think of like Negroni Spagliato, for example, was a Negroni that someone accidentally poured Prosecco on. And now it's like one of the best cocktails ever.
It's like a bubbly Negroni.
Who wouldn't want a souped up Negroni with a bunch of Prosecco on it?
Some champers on there.
And I mean, and it's actually a good segue. The cocktail I'm going to make as the variation, you're going to notice it's wildly similar to the original Boulevardier, just with some adjustments on the measurements and the addition of some bitters. Great.
So one way you can mix up your Boulevardier, you can either make it with a rye or a bourbon. You can just go back original with the gin. Is there a Spagliato version of the Boulevardier? Like pour some Prosecco on top of. I mean, you could do that. You could be the first one.
You heard it here first. We're gonna to do that. Yeah.
You could pour some Prosecco on top of your Boulevardier and make the bourbon version.
Yeah, I think you can pour Prosecco on anything. And
I think so.
It's probably going to be pretty
We're
good.
totally going to do like a whole series on bubbles
Yes,
soon.
we'll
We're going to wait till the baby's born. We'll do it after that. And so one of the other ways, so you can mix this up by adding some bitters, which is essentially what the left hand is, right?
Yes. So left hand was created by a good friend of mine and cocktail godfather of the modern era, Mr. Sam Ross. He came up with this cocktail in 2006 at Milk and Honey, and it's when I explain it, it's 1.5 ounces of bourbon, 3/4 ounce Campari, 3/4 ounce sweet vermouth, and 2 dashes of chocolate bitters. So it's the same recipe as that alternate one we gave you earlier, with the addition of some chocolate bitters, and it's served up. I think I did notice a question that was about serving this drink up or down. Mm-hmm. Again, this drink is so personal. Everyone, whether it's garnish or the amount of vermouth and Campari you're using, I think the same can be said for serving it up or down. And I'm sort of seasonal, which is hilarious for me to say because I live in San Diego and we have one season with some rain sprinkled in. Mm-hmm. I think enjoying this drink down makes a little more sense on a warmer day. Maybe on a patio or outside, having a Boulevardier down just makes a little more sense. On that ice, yeah, exactly. And up might be reserved for the more colder months, which I'm like just lying. I don't know what a colder month is. So
in San Diego,
yeah, I'm like the colder months of San Diego.
Let's talk with Diane
when
about
it's
that
65. So yeah, I mean, both ways are totally fine in terms of the serve. I prefer mine down. I love ice. If we haven't figured that out thus far, like I love ice. I'm an ice freak. I think a cocktail like this with such bold ingredients needs to be on ice. But I've definitely been served Boulevardiers and Negronis up, and I will happily drink them. I'm not going to discriminate on what glass it comes in. I will enjoy it.
I would say that the trick, though, if you're going to serve it up, since you're not going to experience that dilution journey where the cocktail is over an ice rock, where it's a little too hot, but then it hits that perfect center, and then if you really nurse it, it's going to get watery.
Yes.
But I think that journey is like a really fun thing to experience. If you're serving it up, it's more important to achieve that dilution.
Point. Yeah, there's a little more.
Right?
Yeah, I think not a little more, a lot more technique into making a stirred cocktail that's served up. Mm-hmm. It's very temperamental. There's nothing worse than a bad martini or a bad Manhattan. Unless you just shake it, which, if I'm at Turf Club, I'm not going to tell the Turf Club bartender they shouldn't do that.
I'm going to drink
it with a smile. But I think if you're really trying to achieve that perfect unity and balance in a stirred up cocktail, I highly recommend tasting the cocktail as you're stirring it. Mm-hmm. Not only for proper dilution, but for temperature. Nice. And to make sure that all the ingredients are starting to unify together in that perfect harmony that we're looking for. And you can do that just like, you can take a little bit with your bar spoon, put it on your hand, and just taste it. If you have straws, I mean, I know it's not environmentally conscious, but you can straw test it as you're making it. Metal straws are fantastic. But we can talk about that more while I make the left hand. I think it's a good opportunity to showcase that technique a little bit.
Get your second cocktail going.
Awesome. So let's start with the chocolate bitters, or in this case, the Angostura cocoa bitters. These are new, and they're really fantastic. I'm glad you had these. I got a bottle mailed to me, and it's gone in every cocktail I've made. Like, why not? Add a little chocolate. Who doesn't like that?
If you don't have the chocolate bitters at home, but you wanted to make a variation of the Boulevardier, could you just throw any bitters in there?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to accentuate, Campari is bitter on its own, but I think I love Ango, and even more so, I love Peychaud's. Mm-hmm. I think Peychaud's makes things fantastic. There's been a lot of times where I've been coming up with cocktails, and something was just missing, and I've added 2 dash of bitters, and now it's ready for the menu.
There you go.
That's a little hack. That's a secret of the trade. We just add bitters to everything, and we call it the best cocktail in the world.
It's improved.
Sea salt.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was so guilty of putting a pinch of salt in all of my drinks, and now all the memes now are like making fun of that. And I'm like, That wasn't me.
It's delicious.
I didn't do that.
You're like, I started that.
So I'm doing 2 dashes. Like, you know, this gauge is a little big here on the bitters bottle, so I would say like 4 good shakes down. Then we're going to start with the vermouth. We're going to do 1.5 ounces of sweet vermouth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where my
Oh,
drink went.
sorry, I used it for
fine.
my drink. Let me rinse.
For your NA?
I did.
All good.
Isn't that beautiful? The kitchen, the sink.
It's
very
convenient.
right there. Sean's
Alright.
wanted to run water in the bar, but we haven't gotten there yet.
Nah, we got a sink right there.
Start over because I did too much.
He did too much.
It happens, you know. This is live, you know.
If you're making a cocktail at home and you pour too much vermouth in your jigger, you can also just sip until it gets
drank it. Yeah, that's
until it gets to the level that you're supposed to be at.
I'm realizing that now.
He's defaulting to his to the etiquette and the cleanliness
I'm in front
of
of
a
guests right now. You
bar
know?
environment.
So 3/4 ounce Campari. I just did a 3/4 ounce sweet vermouth. We have our bitters in there. We're gonna finish it with 1.5 ounces. I'm gonna go with the wild turkey again, because I'm a company man. But whatever bourbon or rye that you're using, it'll work just fine. It's gonna be delicious. 1.5 ounces. Right in. Perfect. And we're gonna stir this on ice. Look at that.
He's a good bar back.
Been a while since I've done that. Got scared for a second. Got my spoon here. Yeah, so if you have a mixing glass like this at home, make sure you're filling it up to the top with ice. I think that's super important. This is going to cause this sort of like cold pocket inside the vessel, and it's going to allow for the best rate of dilution while you're stirring the drink.
You know who taught me that?
Who?
Lay.
He's just a saint.
He talked about it like your stuff stays cold in the refrigerator because the door's closed. And so this is like putting enough ice in to close the door in the refrigerator so it stays cold down there. I like that analogy.
He was a wise man.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm doing a stirred cocktail, like if I was in the bar right now, I would get it started just how I did, and actually now would be the time where I would go take care of something else, whether it's like go check on my coworker, talk to another guest. I'm letting it kind of cook right now is what we call it. The cocktail's cooking. I've already gotten it started. The ice has been introduced to the spirits. Dilution's begun. I want it to come up to temperature right now. That's what I'm doing. So I would actually wait a little bit, you know, go do something. Go pet your dog.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
come up to or come down to temperature since we're chilling.
Wow, come down. Yes.
I just
right. Is there a metal straw I can?
Sean, you can grab one.
Right here.
No, we're out of the long ones. Can you get one?
Wait, I found one.
Found one?
I found one.
Found a shorty?
This is fine.
Good.
This is
okay,
fine.
good.
So I'm coming back. Also, what you're looking for. Notice how the level of the liquid. I mean, it started almost here.
Mm-hmm.
It's already come up like almost a 1/2 inch. The ice was also almost towering over the glass. Now it's starting to settle in, and this is exactly what we want. So I'm going to give it a straw taste. So I think we're almost there. I still got a lot of the bourbon coming through.
What does that feel? Does it taste like? It tastes a little hotter.
It'll taste hot. Like it's going to be like, especially for the folks that are using like Rittenhouse or a rye right now. If that rye flavor is still popping, you need more time. A couple more stirs.
See how like that volume, that liquid volume has come up. It's because the ice is settled into it, right?
Yeah, like it's a whole process from start to finish, and like especially when you start it, you see it down here, you're like, man, that's not even gonna fill the glass. It's actually really scary when you're at a bar, especially like Noble, and you're like, man, if I pour this out and it's short, I am gonna look terrible to the guests in front of me. So, a few more. I think this is ready to rock.
Or if it's over diluted.
Even worse. I'd rather be under than over.
Because then they feel like you're not giving them all their drink when you stop pouring, right?
Just pour this into the glass. Silky smooth. That's what we're looking for. There we go.
Near that wash line.
It's a little rough. I probably would have stirred a little bit longer. I'm going to flip my straw and use the other end so I can see what my finished product is. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. It's perfect. I'll blame the glass for it not being right here. It was a bigger glass, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think to your point before we started making this drink was so solid. I mean, when you're making a stirred up cocktail, you don't have that luxury of the cocktail sitting on ice. So if you understir a cocktail that's sitting on ice, you can, in my case, leave it in the service well for a little bit, and then it'll be perfect by the time someone comes to grab it and run it. With a stirred up cocktail, you don't really have that luxury, and you almost have to be perfect every time you make it. So I think this worked out. I'm gonna go. It calls for a Luxardo cherry, but I think this cocktail works really good with a lemon zest.
There you go.
If Sam heard me say that, he would just yell at me.
Good thing he's busy teaching bartenders how to make drinks right now.
Thank God he's here. Yeah, I mean, he's a really angry Australian man at times. So, but
Don't tell Sam.
Yeah, I prefer lemon. I think especially with the vermouth that we're using, and I did see a question about vermouth earlier, and I'm sure we'll get into vermouths.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm just gonna do lemon zest right over the top. I do this little twisty guy. I haven't done this in years, so sorry.
It's beautiful.
There it is. Oh my gosh, it still works.
Look at that.
Awesome. Left-hand cocktail.
There it is.
And this one's for you. Yeah.
All right.
Should I hand it?
Sean's very happy about that.
Yeah, he is. He was.
Woohoo!
That brought me back to my bar days. He was like this. He was like somebody
sitting there.
He was somebody who ordered from me, and I'm like, I'm
patiently
taking
waiting.
Embarrassingly happy.
Oh man. Beautiful. I can't wait to enjoy with you in a little bit. We had a couple of questions we could probably address quickly before we dive into like Amari and Vermouth, which I think would be great conversations for tonight. One was, if you're looking for something a little smokier, like a smokier version, would you use like a Scotch or a Mezcal?
Mezcal all day. Oaxacan Negroni is what we call it here. We should understand too that the Boulevardier is an extension of what we call the Negroni family tree. Excuse me. My company has designed it's actually really beautiful, this sort of like web, if you will, with the Negroni being the mother cocktail and then all the variations sort of branching off from it, with the Boulevardier definitely being like one of the first stops. But beyond that, Oaxacan Old Fashioned for sure. Any mezcal will do. I don't recommend pouring your Tobola into the cocktail. If you get down like that, I'm not going to stop you. But it's definitely a really awesome variation. I'm partial to the Kingston Negroni, which is a Jamaican rum Negroni, or in this, you can call it Boulevardier Negroni, but we're using Negroni as sort of that, like I said, the mother cocktail. Kingston Negroni is great. Traditionally, it's made with, a pot still overproof Jamaican rum, which can be a little aggressive for people. Smith & Cross comes to mind. I actually can't even drink Smith & Cross anymore. Had too much of it false idol.
Literally.
But I still sell rum. I sell Appleton and Wray & Nephew. I think Appleton, especially the 12-year, is such a great spirit to use in this cocktail. If you guys get a chance, get some aged Appleton. Preferably the higher age, 12 or 15, and make a Negroni with it, and you will be super, super happy. So I mean, sky's the limit in terms of variations that you can kind of do. And I mean, go take some chances, make some mistakes. You might come up with the next Boulevardier. That's my recommendation.
Oh, he drank all the Appleton. There you go.
Good man. It's easy to drink.
James said that he likes the version with chocolate bitters, but the Campari is still too forward.
Okay.
What would you? And that was with the 3/4.
Yeah. So I mean, Campari is one of those.
Let's talk about Campari.
Campari, for me, it's love it or hate it. But even if you hate it, it's going to be in one of your drinks eventually. It just shows up. It's like it's that annoying cousin you have. It's just always going to be there. There's no getting around it. Campari, yeah, I mean, originated 1870 in Novara, Italy, which I believe is southern. Don't quote me on that. It is the recipe from its inception has been passed down generation to generation of a family. Like literally, the guy who signs my checks is Davide Campari. So it's still run by a member of the Campari family.
That's awesome.
The recipe is heavily protected, and you can pick out some stuff that's in it just based on your palate, but we're never really going to know exactly what's in it for proprietary reasons and protection. It's synonymous with the cocktail world. I think it's...
Why is it so critical in so many classic cocktails? So a little background too is we recommend a good solid core of 15 bottles for your home bar. And when it comes to choosing what we call an Amaro aperitivo, or this kind of lighter version of an Amaro, it's not the really dark Noninos and that sort of thing, or the Goldens. Our recommendation is it's hard to substitute Campari when you're making a drink that calls for Campari. You can do it. You'll end up with a drink that's interesting. But Aperol is a little too light. Brutto Americano.
Yeah.
I like playing around with those other Amaris.
Brutto, you need a glass of water nearby just because it dries out your mouth.
It does.
Almost immediately. It's fantastic. And I think kind of what you're edging towards and what
Why is it so
it's
such an anchor in the cocktail world?
Listen, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't. I hated Campari when I seriously, you start bartending and people shove Fernet in your face and they're like, Campari's really good, and I'm like, no, it's not. It's really bitter. I don't want this right now. I think Campari is an acquired taste, and if we think about the DNA of cocktails, right? The balance between bitter and sweet. Right. I mean, that's what we're always trying to achieve, or the balance between citrus and the spirit that you're using and the sugar. There's this game that you play, and it takes some time. The Campari maybe popped out for him because you might not love Campari yet, and that's fine. I used to hate it, like I said, and now I sell it. So it's just it's gonna happen. It's a natural progression. I mean, in his case, you could maybe dial down the Campari even more, and you'd still be fine.
You could also try subbing for another Amari if you wanted to.
I mean, I'm looking at one right now that I actually represent. I'm going very company man right now. Averna. Averna is fantastic and a little less aggressive in terms of the bitterness element. There's a little more sweetness to it. I mean, if we're just being honest here, you can even do this as your vermouth. I mean, we have cocktails like a Black Manhattan that call for rye or bourbon, but with Averna instead of vermouth. So, I mean, there's no wrong way to do it. And as long as you're happy with what you're drinking, I say go for it.
Yeah. But actually, at one point, I know I'm not on camera, but Rachel and I were really loving Grand Classico for a while, and it really, for her, was more in the driver's seat in her Negroni for a number of years.
I think for probably 2 years, I took my Negronis with Gran Classico, which also has an old kind of pedigree in this era, and it was interesting. In some ways, it was a little bit more sweet.
Yeah.
But I think that I was just a little nervous about the red color.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with. I
was going through this super natural, no artificial colors and dyes phase.
Yeah, totally.
So I was I'm gonna go with one that has, that says they don't use a red number, whatever.
Sure, I think there's also this misconception of sweetness in cocktails.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with sweet things. They're delicious. I mean,
He's got a sweet tooth.
I got a sweet tooth, and there's no shame in that. I mean, I worked at a tiki bar for 2 years. All I did was make drinks with tons of syrups and rum and pineapple juice. So, and bourbon,
they were delicious.
Like bourbon is sweet. There's a lot of people who don't totally realize that bourbon's actually a really, really sweet spirit. There's some rums that are actually a lot more dry than a lot of the bourbons that we drink. So there's nothing wrong with introducing a sweeter element to your cocktail, because that's what your palate is craving. For you, when you were going through that Grand Classico Rumspringa, if you will, there's nothing wrong with that. And and now I'm sure you really enjoy Campari. You enjoy that extremely bitter element. I don't think one journey is right or wrong, and however you get there, I'm happy for you. So yeah, go for it. You know, whatever you have on hand, explore new things. You know, Montenegro. I mean, the Italian Amari world is vast, and there's definitely no wrong answer. Nannino. I mean, you can kind of pick your poison in that sense.
That's the fun of it, you all. We had to mention, I think, John. What is it? John and John. No, John and Jamie. And John too. We got a lot of J's here.
Majority J's.
The red color in Campari used to come from this insect called the cochineal beetle.
Yes, it was for a long time derived from. I want to say their husks, the shells of them. Obviously, Campari is mass produced now, and that's no longer a practice for all of our animal lovers out there, or insect lovers for that matter. Yeah, it's not sustainable at all. So we moved away from that. I mean, I will tell you in Jamaica, and another fun fact, I saw someone mention they like the fun facts, so I'll give you another one. Jamaica as an island consumes the most Campari per capita than anywhere else in the world.
Oh, wow. I had no idea.
They absolutely love Campari. I had the pleasure of going there last year for our company's national conference and touring Appleton, and every bar we went to, even around the resort where we were staying, Campari was just, and they drink rum paris, which is 2 parts Campari, 2 parts Ray and Nephew on ice.
What?
That's it. They go crazy for Campari. And what we actually have, obviously, since we own the Appleton facility, we have, you know, a whole operation there. And what Campari does is they send basically the base recipe to Jamaica, and Jamaica finishes it.
Oh,
in Jamaica in their own way. It's actually higher proof by 3%. So I believe Campari is 24. Yeah, even more than that. Sorry. Campari in Jamaica is 30% ABV, and it's a little bit sweeter and not as bitter. So when I went, I was in duty free. I bought like 10 750s. It's already gone. it's souped up Campari.
I'm very excited
from
about
Jamaica.
That.
Yeah. So I mean, it's really interesting, and like, you know, that's a great example too. Like, they like their Campari a little bit sweeter down in Jamaica, and they drink a lot of it, so they know what they're talking about.
Yep, you guys know all about this Carmine dye.
Yeah, they know more about it than I do.
You guys are great. So yeah, Tom, vegetarian cocktails only, please. The Campari that you'll get today does not have animals in it.
It's vegetarian.
Right, it's vegetarian.
Guilt free.
So it's fun. I think another thing that's fun to do with Campari is just like Campari soda.
Oh, totally.
It's great. We're going to do a brunch series on cocktails at some point. Great. That'll be really fun.
Americano, which is just Campari sweet vermouth. And for those of you that don't know, the way a Negroni was invented was a count by the name of Negroni would order his Americanos spiked with gin. And then people started ordering Americanos the Negroni way. And, you know, fast forward to now, everyone loves a Negroni. Oh, I had a really good quote that from Sam, actually. He texted me that I want to share. In regards to the Negroni, it is... Wait, I lost it. It's man's gift from the cocktail gods.
Fair enough.
In regards to the Negroni.
The Negroni is, I mean, people tattoo them on their bodies. We have had two people here who have tattoos of the Negroni on
the
their
guy
bodies,
who had my job before me definitely has a Negroni tattoo.
So yeah, again, the Boulevardier is a beautiful variation of the Negroni, and there's a whole family tree. You can probably go to Campari's website and see it.
Definitely.
And explore more variations. Let's talk vermouth.
Sure. Yeah,
What questions do you have for vermouth? Put them in the chat, and you can just get started on sort of your highlights.
Fire away. I brushed up on some vermouth last night, and I will mention I do sell a vermouth. It's Cinzano, and we have a Cinzano kind of like baseline vermouth, and then we also have Cinzano 1757, which is a Cocchi di Torino. So that's made with a higher quality wine. I believe it's even DOC grade wine that's going into that vermouth. The price difference is vast, but I would put it right next to Carpano Antica. I love Alessio. When you sent me this picture, I was really stoked. Alessio...
Thanks, Stefan.
The wine they utilize is coming from the Piedmont region. I would put it on par with that higher end vermouth that I sell. It's so fantastic. It's so herbaceous, like almost lemony, zesty in a way, and not super, super sweet. So it's a more herbaceous experience.
I found that it's probably closest to one of the vermouths I could drink straight and just be fine.
Was just going to say, this on the rocks, lemon peel, forget about it. That's it.
There you go.
In a cocktail, eat like chef's kiss. It's perfect.
We usually, I think the Carpano Antica formula is the one that's more readily available that we recommend, but we've been exploring different kinds of vermouths, and Stefan brought us this one.
I've even in some of the more like indie, I don't want to call them bodegas, but like almost run-of-the-mill liquor stores, I've seen like a wider range of vermouths available.
Go on a vermouth hunt, y'all.
Go on a vermouth hunt. I mean, Carpano Antica is great. I definitely call it an industry standard, but it is a little pricey. It's got a ton of vanilla in it. It's definitely on the sweeter end, and it's redundant, like a sweet vermouth. You're thinking sweet, but it is very sweet. Like sweet vermouth in general has such a wide spectrum of what you can get.
What is vermouth, for those of you who are wondering the same question?
Yeah, I mean, vermouth is, it's essentially, it's repurposing wine. Like winemakers can use, almost leftovers and fortify them with, medical grade herbs and roots and whatnot in a way to preserve them over time.
So when you distill wine, you get brandies, but when you fortify them and not distilling them, and you add all sorts of beautiful things like herbs and botanicals, and usually they add sugar or some kind of sugar syrup to sweeten them up a little bit
water
for a sweet vermouth. Then you get vermouths. Yeah,
and I think if you should leave here with one thing, it's keep your vermouth in the fridge after you open it, please.
There you go.
Please do that. I can't recommend anything more. Shelf life on them, I give my sweet vermouths about a month in the fridge after being opened. So it's pretty long. After that, you're going to get some oxidation. You're going to be able to taste it. I mean, to a more educated palate, you'll be able to taste that oxidation after about a month, maybe 6 weeks. And like Blanc vermouth, I think goes even a little bit quicker. So but keep it in the fridge, please. That's close to my heart. But I couldn't agree more. Go on a vermouth tour.
Go on a vermouth tour.
Vermouth is awesome, and there was a period.
It's like a hidden gem.
Yeah, it really, like you went on that Grand Classico trip.
Yeah, I had to go up to Orange County to get it too.
Yeah, I for a while, my move at a bar I would order Blanc or a solid vermouth di Torino on the rocks with a little bit of citrus, and also pro move, it's low ABV, so you can drink it over a longer period of time. But for a while, I was starting, before meals especially, I think it's really appropriate to do vermouth before dinner.
So if you don't go through your vermouth and cocktails very often, but you like drinking wine at home,
drink vermouth.
Have a little glass of vermouth while you're cooking your dinner.
And it's like your
friends,
throw
a little bit in your food.
Yeah,
you're making a pasta, you can use vermouth in the same way.
I mean, your friends will come over too, and they're like, "What are you drinking?" You're like, "Vermouth." It's a good look. Trust me. Yeah, it's very sophisticated.
So, Tempus Fugit makes the Gran Classico.
This is also Tempus Fugit.
And that is as well. Yeah. That's what these Johns are talking about here in the chat.
Same house.
Any other last questions, y'all? We have about 4 minutes left.
You're right, it does go fast.
It does go fast.
I'm just settling
It's too much fun.
We can keep going. We were going to talk about, what was the thing we were going to talk about?
Well, we actually have another meeting after this, right? A crowdcast?
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who, no, we're going to have to wrap it at 5:30 today, so we can't go over. If you're on our email list for the cocktail journey, then you would have gotten an email that we've got another announcement. I mentioned it last week. We've got another announcement that we're going to be making today. We don't want to take up time on the live stream, so we're going to do that right after this. And if you didn't get that email, we'll drop a link to that in the chat at the end so that you all can join us there. Yes, I touched my belly. I did.
No, you were rubbing it, and
I was rubbing it, and that's okay. I'm trying not to be too pregnant for y'all on camera because I feel like people don't want to learn about cocktails from a pregnant lady.
Don't stifle the pregnancy. It's important.
But we're in a totally inclusive environment, including people who are having babies. So Last minute questions for shrimp toast. How'd you get your name?
Oh yeah, we can do it. I wish it was a cooler story. But we're gonna end on a boring note, I guess.
No way, that's what I like to do.
I've
been waiting to hear the story for years.
I was at a speed bartending competition in Vegas with the Noble staff at the time. I want to say this is like 2015. And Anthony Schmidt, who's the beverage director for Consortium Holdings, one of my bosses at the time, he was like, I know this great spot. We're gonna go to this restaurant, right? We went off strip in one of the seediest casinos I've ever walked into, and that's saying a lot because I've been to some bad ones. To this place called Fat Chow, and it was this LA chef who did like food trucks. He did a brick and mortar in this gross casino for some reason, and the server comes up to us, just old Vegas server, just like, our special's the shrimp toast, and we're like, what is that? She's like, it sells out every time. So we get the last 3 orders of it. I'm at a table of like 10 people. I end up eating all 3 orders. like housed them. Like I didn't even come up for air. And Trevor Easter, my boss at the time, he just looks at me. He's like, take it easy, shrimp toast. And it was one of those light bulb aha moments. And everyone looked at each other and they're like, well, that's going to stick. And I guess 6 years later, it's synonymous. It's I might work for Campari, but I also work for the Shrimp Toast brand. It's a brand in and of itself. So and it's funny. Like I'll get texts from people, Instagram messages. Like they're like of a shrimp toast on a menu. They're like, dude, like it's crazy.
You can find this.
I'm like, it's a real thing. It's a southeastern Asian street food. So like, it's not surprising if you go to like a Chinese restaurant and you see it on the menu.
It's
also a memory device.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love you, man.
Yeah. You can find this guy at _shrimp_toast on Instagram.
Shrimp toast was taken. So
for some foodie, right?
I had to I had to add the underscore. So I'm sorry if that's difficult for you to find me.
No, it's great. Go find him on Instagram. Go check out Negroni's, and if you're interested in what's happening at the Cocktail Journey, stick around. After this chat ends and the live stream ends, I'm going to drop it in the comments on this video. So just hang out on YouTube and you'll see it pop up. We're going to do that over on a different platform. You don't have to download anything. All you do is click on the link. So we'll see you there.
Cheers.
Cheers. Peace out. Enjoy your Boulevardiers, and we'll see you next week for the French 75.
Ooh, it's gonna
with
be a good one.
Kieran Grill back again. Woohoo!
Legend.
So we'll see you all next week or right after this. Have a good one. All right. Shrimp toast is a wonderful treat. I don't know that I've ever had shrimp toast.
That's a lot of people say that.
I feel like it would be like a lobster roll. And I love the lobster roll, especially the one.
I mean, yeah, it's shellfish
at Ironside.
and bread.
And butter.